Something like that. They may be late in the day.
The echo. I've got my audio.
Yeah, I'm trying to get something done.
We need to get going. I know that Hammond Consultants need about 20 to 30 minutes. And we have a lot to cover. Then we have some ordinances that need passed tonight. I think the ones that we started last week, every one of those will need to be passed on the second reading, if you guys can do that. And then ordinance 2422, the ordinance establishing the wage for the position of fire chief, superseding any other wage ordinance for said position, that needs passed tonight. 2522, an ordinance authorizing the city of Coshocton to enter into a community reinvestment area agreement with Honey House LLC pursuant to sections 3735. 0.671 of the Ohio Revised Code, authorizing the city of Coshocton to enter into a related school compensation agreement with the Coshocton City School District and Honey House Coshocton LLC. That needs passed. Is that correct? Is that correct? Okay. And you know, and I think there's still that, I think Bob brought it up and I kind of agree that $1,000 that, you know, we are in here, we're asked to enter into the agreement. We're paying $1,000. I think that's an issue that we need to look at as well.
That really just establishes a baseline template for the city moving forward.
So any other of those buildings that want to enter into that agreement, we're going to fork out another $1,000.
No.
What was that $1,000 for?
For your one-time creation of the CRA agreement, baseline agreement, it'll now serve as a template moving forward. So anytime that you enter into this agreement moving forward, this is your template. You have to seek out the document and have them reviewed for legal. That's what the $1,000 is for.
Who did that?
I did with the permission of Mark and Max, reached out to Burger and Eckler.
And yeah, I think you have to go for that.
Okay. Thank you.
Did the school also have, the city schools also have to pay $1,000?
No, they did not. They had their portion. What essentially happened is the law director, who serves as both entities, and because of his vacation, we went ahead and asked for permission to move it to Bricker and Eckler so that the school could keep it on their calendar at that time. And that's why it was done the way it was done. And it's in a typical way, it could be handled here locally with the city. But because of that week that we weren't able to get it done before the city, Bricker and Eckler was able to look at it. And that was all discussed ahead of time and approved.
There's Jason. Ordinance 26-22 appropriations, that needs passed. 27-22 needs passed, it's transfers. 28-22, an ordinance establishing a compensation for EPA certified professional operators, that can run its course. And then we have resolution 6-22 and 7-22. Okay.
Just so I don't shock anyone, I usually don't, but I'm opposing 622 when it comes time to pass that, just because I know I talked to someone, I can't remember whether it was Max Mark, who was 6 or 8 months ago, and asked if the city was going to apply for the Nature Works grant, and at that time, that wasn't in the plan, so the park went ahead and applied for it. So just being a park board member also. But I want to just put that out there ahead of time.
Gotcha. Okay. I asked Michelle to sub in for Glenn on the ordinance committee. So when we moving forward, I'll CC her. What I've done with the building codes is when I downloaded them in a Word document for like the building permits and what you want to address, Tom. Then you guys can highlight those, trade them back and forth. I think that's probably the easiest way instead of everybody have a hard copy and trying to get together. So, yep. So any other ordinances that we need to discuss for the next meeting? Anything coming up? Mark? Max? Sherry?
Mark's gonna discuss some stuff of ARPA, and we'll probably have some appropriations for that. And might have a few, just if council's going to take recess in August, might be looking at some line items just to get those in some good shape before you take typically the month of August off, if that's what you're still going to do. So I might have a few just transfers. So
You want the vacant building for next?
Well, I think now's a good time because I have it under the building codes. Tom, I'll let you go ahead and speak, Tom, since you.
Well, for some time, I guess I thought that maybe our vacant building code needed some updating, maybe a little more teeth in it. So I did some research around in some other cities, and I came up with a couple things. We've run them past Bob. I think he's seen them and maybe has some suggestions as well. But just one of them is to require a vacant building owner to carry liability insurance. In the event that building would collapse or burn down or something, the city's not stuck with the cleanup. Another, and I checked with Rusty on this, Fire Chief Greer, that a vacant building needs to have a key box installed in the building so that the fire department can get in the event of a fire or a rescue situation. They have the ability to get into that building. And then the other one that I had suggested was just kind of expanding on what happens if the owner or the person in control does not pay the fines. So this was most of these I took from the city of Sandusky. And when they instituted this in 2012, they had 115 vacant commercial structures. And today they have 18. They have a really stringent inspection policy. Actually, their fire department does the inspections. So that has really encouraged people to either redo their building and get it back into occupancy or to sell it. It's worked real well up there, evidently. I know I can see the pluses of having a fire department do some of the inspections, because those guys are the ones that are going to have to go in when it's dark, and they need to know if that building is safe before they go in there. We have another ordinance that requires that the buildings are watertight, and that's why we're losing so many buildings. The roofs are leaking. We need to do inspections, and we need to get a little tougher on some people. Right now, they can slap a for sale sign in the window, a homemade sign or whatever, and be exempt, but they're only supposed to be exempt for 12 months. And I know we've got property owners that have had buildings sitting there for 12 months, a lot more than 12 months. So I just think we need to go over that entire ordinance and do some updating on it.
What do you think, Paul?
I have no problem with the changes that were described, with some minor language modifications. And then emailing Roger. There are two cases that our current ordinance doesn't cover, and that nor with changes. And I just wanted you to think about this stuff. If we're going to change it, maybe you want to include these things. But take for instance my building on Main Street. We've inhabited the basement, the bottom floor for 50 years. But the top 3 floors have been vacant and will always remain vacant as long as I own that building. I am assuming you don't want to cover that type of situation in this type of ordinance. And the reason why I bring that up is we have one notorious owner of downtown buildings that has a vacant building, but has one tiny business in one small, very section of that whole building. But because of that, he is exempt from this ordinance. So I just wanted to bring that situation up, see if you wanted to cover it. But like I say, that would cover, if you tried to include that, it's probably going to include a lot of people, including me, who's spent a lot of money on the basement floor, but the top 3 floors are just inhabitable. And quite frankly, I have no intention of putting the money in to do that. But if you wanted to cover that situation, I'm just describing a problem that Jeff has run into with that business owner. And it has been a problem. The other problem is that it's very easy to get around this ordinance by storing things and treating it like a warehouse.
Yeah.
Even though the business or the building is not really meant for warehousing. Very easy for people to get around this ordinance by doing that. So I didn't know if we wanted to cover that type of situation and what language we would use. Perhaps there's something in Sandusky's that cover that situation. But under our current ordinance and even with your changes, that would not change.
Yeah. Sandusky's has very few exemptions at all. They don't include for sale, any of that.
Just to bring this to your attention, the city of Sandusky is a charter city and not a statutory city too. So I don't know.
How much of a difference
legality.
does that make?
Typically it would. In this particular case, I don't believe there's any revised code sections that would be contradictory to our ordinance if we strengthened it. The real problem I see is enforcement because of our lack of personnel. But,
Right.
that's a different issue. So I'm not too worried about the difference between charter and statutory in this particular case. But I just didn't, if we're going to change it, do you want to include those other type situations or just?
You deal with these situations, we don't. So I would suggest that whatever you feel that those changes need to be made, that would give it some teeth, and in addition to what Tom has proposed, that we we might as well take care of it now. Jeff?
Jeff, yeah,
Well, there's changes need to be made. I mean, we have Uni Rate that's supposed to be working on these buildings and going after these vacant properties. To this point, I don't think we've seen anything from Uni Rate as far as any payments or anything like that. And we stay in contact. I keep sending them properties that I want to look at. I've not seen anything back from them.
I talked to Munireg today because I talked to you earlier. They sent a Q1 report to me, and there's like 6 locations. I'll send it out to council. They said Thursday they were going to send Q2 report. So I'm curious
Okay.
to see what.
I don't know how much they're doing.
Right.
I think we do know probably.
Yeah, as far as the storage in there, fire department can do a lot for storage because warehousing falls under the fire code. So.
Chief Dreyer, I'm sorry to interrupt, Jeff. Because I know where you're going. What do you think about all this?
To tackle projects like this, it comes down to personnel. I mean, Brent Ainsley, our fire prevention officer, not only doing fire prevention, but fire safety, and we're swamped right now completely with everything else going on. So, I mean, to tackle a project like this on the fire side alone, because there's some building stuff that we can't do, it takes an engineer, but just on the fire side alone, we would need somebody else for sure. Just, I mean, you're talking tons and tons of buildings downtown that would take a lot of time, and we need to stay up on top of.
Do we have a master list of vacant buildings?
The only thing we have is a list of buildings that have no water turned on, and I get that from the water department. Got one updated a couple weeks ago. You should have got that.
I did.
That's the only thing we have to go after on vacant structures, because, you gotta look at residential along with commercial, because if you don't, you're gonna get, Bob's gonna have a headache with the commercial people saying, well, why aren't you going after residential vacant property too? So, if you're gonna make changes on one, those changes have to go with the other as well, or we're gonna get into this complaint of selective enforcement, and Bob could end up in court all the time fighting for the city that we're not selectively enforcing an ordinance, that we're not going after the people we know can pay. And then, we get into the situation we've talked about before. If I come to Chad, I tell Chad, your house is not in good shape, you've got holes in the roof, you've got paint peeling off, and that needs to be brought up, and Chad says, as soon as this 95-year-old lady over here that has a fixed income fixes hers up, you make her fix hers up, I'll fix mine up. And we've not come to a good avenue to battle that. I mean, there's a lot of communities that have went to the point of throwing $10,000, $15,000 into a program and saying, up to so much money, we will match you on your bills to paint your house. And, it gives a little incentive then for these property owners to do that. And another thing, I know that you're talking about the people coming in paying permit fees for their buildings and stuff. And that's all well and good, but we don't have anybody that goes out and inspects those buildings to make sure the work's being done correctly. Now here I am, you're telling me you want me to fix my house up, but you want me to pay you $3,000 because I want to fix my house up. When that $3,000 could have went more into fixing my house up. So I guess, the way I look at it, and this is totally just my point of view, I see nothing wrong with commercial because we have the avenue to follow through with them with Mid-East Ohio. But I think building permits for putting siding on houses, putting roofs on houses, fixing concrete sidewalks, but we have no inspection program that can go out and say they're doing anything right or wrong. I think we're handicapping ourselves, and you're handcuffing the people that don't have a lot of money, but they're willing to put some money into their property. But now they got to come up here and pay $150 or $200 for building permit fees to make that happen. So I don't think there's a problem with permit fees on the commercial side, but I just think we really need to take a hard look at the residential. We're right now, a community that I think is on the upswing, where, you know, you drive around town, things are looking a whole lot better than they have in the last 10 years. And I just think that, you know, there's ways we could enhance that by offering some maybe incentives, if we could come up with a little bit of money to make matching grants for residential properties. You know, I think that there's some things we could do constructive.
I think what we plan on doing with this ordinance is to go through it and look at some of the things that are on there for residential and delete some of that stuff, because personally, I don't think it's right either.
Building permits.
Yeah, for the building permits.
I don't, right now, I don't see why anything is sitting vacant here. You know, if you have a vacant structure, residential or commercial, with the way the real estate thing's going, I don't know what people are waiting on.
Right.
I just had one other question about it. Does the city have copies of the registrations at all? Because I was curious to see one, because they're supposed to submit a plan for that building as well when they register.
Hey, Jeff,
I would
do you,
think.
Jeff, do you have registrations filled out where people have sent their checks in or sent?
I don't
their-
have,
to
I've got a
Munirag?
few that been sent directly to us. I've never got a report from Unireg
Okay.
on anything.
My only concern is this council has expressed great dissatisfaction of we'll keep passing laws, but nothing gets done.
Amen.
You're.
Here we
We're talking about another one.
Here we
don't
go.
have the manpower to
Right.
do.
Right.
But I agree with the changes.
Yeah. Okay.
Well, let's go ahead and tighten it and we'll worry about enforcing. Please.
Along with the right personnel, sorry to interrupt, we would be glad to be as aggressive as this council wants us to be, but it's gonna take personnel. So and that's on.
No, I
I
understand
kind of
that,
talked with
yeah.
Brent before I left, because I knew this was coming, and we kind of talked a little bit about it, but we should be as aggressive as Max and the mayor would like us to be with the correct personnel. We can't get bogged down anymore than what we are.
And they have gotten more aggressive on
Yeah.
fire suppression
We've done
systems.
well.
I understand that. I know
So,
they respected some
Right.
buildings.
Is hiring someone an option? I mean, we've got the money from the state that we have that we could put towards the general fund. I don't know how easy it is just to hire somebody. But I wonder.
It depends on,
Hmm.
you know, what department it falls under. You know, is it a general admin position? Is it somebody in fire, or, you know, it's just gonna depend on.
Each area has their own budget.
Mhm, and their own fund, so.
You know what I like to say, let's get creative.
Well, that's what I wonder.
That's a good
Don't you love to hear that?
That's something
She loves that.
we need to look at and move on, so.
Yeah.
Right.
I
Um,
wish Mid-East would be a little bit more aggressive. And what have they done?
He's here, you know, I mean, people, if people are legitimately working on a commercial project, they come to City Hall and talk to him or work through. I mean, as far as I'm concerned, there's communication. If something's going on commercially, it goes through.
Can they
Mid-East.
do anything for the people that hold commercial buildings that aren't doing it?
So and we could probably talk off the record about this, but their hands are tied with what. And we can get with Jason and see how we can work that in there. The thing they can do, they can condemn a building, but great, the building's condemned, then nothing can happen. So that, you know, there are avenues, but I think that's a good conversation probably for me, you and council and Jason Bachman to see what avenue, what's the strongest way from,
Condemning
To a
building
resolution.
Helps me
right,
in getting court orders to tear it down, but tearing it down usually is gonna fall
on
on us.
us, right? So that's where it's always like, it's a double-edged sword.
I think we just put some teeth in the ordinance and figure out a way to enforce it. That is frustrating that we do have a lot that we can't enforce or we're not enforcing, or we have a reason why we're not enforcing.
The city has been
Well,
approached many times and for several years by an individual, you know, looking for us to get our own
Inspector.
inspector and so forth. So, you know, maybe revisit
Yeah, and I
Revisit
brought
that.
that up like a year and a half ago,
Remember.
2 years ago. So,
Mhm.
I mean, it falls under living within your means and, you know, if council will approve, we can do something. But,
Problem with the building department, you have to have a registered you have to have a registered engineer
right,
to be in charge of that, because you've got a plans examiner, and you're looking probably in excess of over $100,000.
right. It would be a couple, it would 250,000
That's gonna be
a
expensive.
year.
For a
I should have one
building
over training or
building
something.
department.
Yeah,
That's
Get
why we
your
opted to
check.
go with minis when we did, because city our size can't afford to have a building department. We just can't. We don't generate, if you look, you can go on his website and look at how many projects he had in the last 12 months in Coshocton, how much money his office brought in from projects in Coshocton, and it's not very much money. If our- I
Well,
think the
We'll look at the
department-
changes, bring them to next meeting. We need to go with, get you guys taken care of. Hammond, I'm sorry, Bob.
Just quickly, you asked for ordinances for the next meeting.
Yep.
And I don't know if you want to do this or not, and I don't even know if the administration is interested. There are a couple of gentlemen here that are interested in buying the city's lot down on Main Street or whatever that street is.
Hickory in Maine, yeah.
If the city is interested in that, we will need to bid it out, so you'll need an ordinance to authorize the bidding.
Right, and I was gonna bring that up, thanks.
You forgot.
No, it's on my it's on my list. I'm glad Bob brought it up. He's not a lawyer now, he's a real estate agent too.
Okay.
We would just need what, an ordinance authorizing to,
Ordinance authorizing the bid process and letting
just,
the bid
right,
and
okay.
signing the documents necessary to sell the property.
Anything else?
So this is kind of a continuation of our past presentations discussing the annexation and JEDs. With me today, I've got Jeanette Becky and Evan Skirty from Omega. And then joining us remotely because of an unfortunate timing of a flat tire, it is Jason Hammond, somewhere near Dover in his vehicle, is going to do the presentation for us today. We've kind of just worked to bring to you some information regarding our community and how we think strategically we can move forward with a growth strategy that works. Jason's done a fantastic job of putting together a PowerPoint presentation that will give us some great information today, but also be utilized, I think, in moving forward, scenario-based situations that we can also continue using. So it is important to note that Omega is under contract with Hammond Consulting. This is really a part of a grant that's made payable through EBA and Jobs Ohio to help support Coshocton County and our recovery from the coal fire power plant AEP closure, and just the general decline of coal jobs here. And so this is through a grant that Hammond is bringing us this information today. Jason, I'll turn it over to you.
All right, Tiffany. Well, thanks for the introduction. Hope, can everybody hear me okay?
Perfect.
Yeah, good. Yeah, I got a big nail in my tire on coming down 77 right before Dover. So I got the donut on and I'm in the parking lot of a gas station. So we'll move forward. I'm going to go ahead and share my screen if that's okay. All right, I trust everyone can see that.
Yep.
Very good. Well, yeah, so as part of the work I'm doing, you know, is contracted through Omega in specifically working on initiatives for Coshocton County. This is one of the topics that's been on my plate, looking at, you know, different mechanisms to promote economic development in various situations. A couple of these that you're obviously familiar with, both annexation and JEDs, or joint economic development districts. You guys have a couple of those on the books, and yeah, I've been able to watch the presentations by both Jennifer and Rob from Bricker and Eckler. Each one of them tackled one of these topics in detail. So we're going to just do a bit of an overview for everybody, just as a refresher to discuss the main points of what annexation is, also what a JED is, and as Tiffany alluded to, put together some scenario analysis that provides an estimation of what the fiscal impacts would be on the city when you look at the different revenue sources that become available using annexation and or JED. And then we'll sort of conclude with a discussion of, what are the city's goals for growth and economic development, and are these tools that can help, and if so, how and when to best use them. So annexation, it's outlined in the Ohio Revised Code. It's a legal process by which some property in an unincorporated area of a township can become part of a neighboring municipality. There are 4 different types of annexation, the traditional type, and then in 2002, that was expanded to include expedited annexation, and there are 3 types that fall under that category as well. Just wanted to highlight some of the basic petition requirements here. I won't go through all of these bullet points, but it's a fairly detailed process. It's laid out, well. So if and when it comes to that point, there's a process in place to handle that. Traditional annexation, as I mentioned, is not used that often since the establishment of the expedited options back in 2002. It's hard to believe 2002 is 20 years ago already. But one of the key points to this is that the petition for annexation has to be filed and has 51% of the property owners on board. The county commissioners have a hearing, and evidence is presented either in favor or against the proposed annex parcels. And the county commissioners do have some discretion as to whether the petition is granted. And this is one of the key distinctions between traditional and expedited annexation. The decision that the county commissioners make can be appealed. And as you might imagine, that can lead into a both lengthy and or expensive process to make a final determination as to whether the annexation will be accepted and approved. The Ohio Secretary of State website has a very nice manual that goes into a lot of detail about the different annexation types and the process. So I'd encourage you to use that as a reference as needed. Expedited annexation outlined in Revised Code Section 709.39. In this case, the county has much more limited discretion in their review. Jennifer, I thought, did a great job presenting to you guys recently about some of the requirements that the county just has to check the boxes on. The property has to be contiguous, of course. 100% of the property owners must sign the annexation petition. And, in the grand scheme of things, relatively short timeline to complete, typically 2 to 3 months. The type 1 annexation, both the city and the township have to agree on the annexation of the property. And this is done through an annexation agreement typically, or what's also known as a CEDA, a Cooperative Economic Development Agreement. That agreement, of course, defines the property that will be annexed. And the township also agrees that the property can be removed from the township. Again, this is about a 2 to 3 month timeline to complete the process. The type 2 expedited has a few nuances that are not included in the type 1. Notably that the annexed property is not removed from the township. Therefore, the township property tax rates for real property would still apply. And those real property tax dollars would still be received by the township. Unless, of course, there's an agreement entered into between the city and the township that would indicate otherwise. Again, the petition must be signed by all property owners in the area that's being proposed for annexation. And this type 2 expedited takes typically 3 to 4 months, so a little bit longer of a process. The last type of expedited really applies in much more specific circumstances for a specific significant economic development project, 3 requirements outlined here that must be met. Total capital investment of $10 million or more. The project has to create a total annual payroll of at least $1 million. And then the Director of Department of Development has to, in fact, certify that these requirements have been met and verified. Again, because of the unique circumstances for which these requirements apply, this type is typically not used all that often. The type 1 and type 2 are used much more frequently. So in contrast, another option is a joint economic development district that works to accomplish similar goals. So as you're aware, there are 2 of them in existence currently that this city has with neighboring townships. A new governmental entity is created by a contractual agreement. There are board members that govern the JED. And the second bullet point on the screen here is, in my opinion, the most important one, is that JEDs were designed to facilitate a specific economic development purpose, creating jobs and employment opportunities, and improving the general welfare of the people. So again, these were created to address specific development challenges in unincorporated areas that typically have less public infrastructure serving them. That can be water and sewer lines, roads, etc. Roads of a economic development capacity, for example, like for an industrial park. JEDs are set up, essentially to be more of a compromise scenario versus annexation. A lot of times townships are not excited about the fact that they would be losing territory and potentially real property tax revenue. So again, JEDs are sort of that compromise scenario that hopefully is a win-win for both entities. Again, a lot of these are focused on the provision of infrastructure to promote economic development and/or services that the township is unwilling or unable to provide. And the municipality, in exchange for this, can levy an income tax from the employment that occurs in this formerly unincorporated area to provide a revenue stream for the infrastructure and/or services to be provided. Sorry, I just, there we go. Okay. So again, like annexation, the parcels, of course, have to be identified. There's a requirement that a majority of the business and/or property owners sign the petition to be included in the JED. As Rob pointed out, the goal is always to get unanimous support to avoid, future issues. And again, the focus is designed to be on economic development. So grow the tax base, create jobs. So some key considerations when establishing a JED or considering it, outline what the infrastructure and services are that will be provided. Are there specific zoning or land use regulations to be included? Any types of restrictions on future annexation or tax abatements, other incentives to be offered within the JED territory. And then the municipal income tax must be applied not only to the employee income, but also to the business net profit tax. So we're going to look at 3 different scenarios that provide, sort of an estimate of the tax impacts, revenue impacts to the city by using one or more of these tools. So we'll call this first one Company X. Working with Tiffany, we obtained some, high-level information about, some potential details. So again, this would apply to employees that both live in this currently unincorporated area and then also live outside the city of Coshocton, so they would not be already subject to the 2% local income tax. So for Company X, that would be about 100 employees. Their average annual wage for these affected 100 employees is about $70,000 per year. So you can see the calculation there. of potential local income tax from the impacted employees of about $140,000 per year. Using some data sources to estimate some other components for these calculations, I used Reference USA, which is a business database similar to Dun & Bradstreet or Hoover's. Estimated annual sales for this particular company X, about $67 million at this location. Not being privy to what their net profits are, I used their relevant industry sector net margin as a proxy for that to calculate what their net profit exposure might be. Again, this is very, we're making reasonable and defensible assumptions, but without that actual data, we can't know for sure. I guess it depends how good their accounting firm is, what their tax exposure might be. But nonetheless, using these data points for company X, it'd be about $133,000 per year. We also obtained water and sewer consumption information for them, and using the difference between inside and outside water and sewer charges that the city imposes. Looks like bringing them to the inside city rate would be about a savings for the company of about $38,000 per year, a net reduction to the city in that same amount, of course. So to summarize, we'd be looking at a potential net annual gain to the city / net loss to the company of about $235,000 per year. And, I'll caveat that statement when I say net loss to the company. The employee local income tax hit obviously impacts the employees rather than the company direct. So, roughly $140,000 of that net difference would be borne by the employees as opposed to the company itself. So, from the city's standpoint, in my mind, the discussion has to be, how do you frame the benefit versus the increased annual cost associated with either one of these options, annexation or JED? And if a JED is in fact the approach that potentially would be pursued, outlining what those infrastructure needs would be, and then how to split that revenue. I think the best way to approach JED is to go in looking for those items first and calculating what the revenue needed to accomplish those infrastructure service goals would be, and then determining how to split the remaining benefit. So we took a similar approach for company Y. Using some different data sources, we estimated that of their 390 location employees, approximately 280 of them could be subject to the local employment tax. That's based on some commuting pattern data for this particular census tract that said, nearly 72% of employees, of workers employed in the census tract, live outside the city of Coshocton. So that's how we determine that 280 number as being potentially impacted by the LIT. Using some data from the Bureau of Labor Statistics and then the Consumer Price Index, we were able to take that annual salary and inflate it to $56,700 from the 2020 value. And you can see there just over $317,000 in potential local income tax revenue generated by the employee wages. Similar approach here, data obtained from Reference USA to estimate annual sales at the location. And again, used their industry sector net margin, study done by New York University, used that as the proxy to calculate what their net profit exposure would be. And you can see in this instance, a little bit over $140,000. More substantial water use at company Y. So the difference between their outside and inside city rate for water and sewer services, almost $112,000 per year. So taking these calculations again, the net annual gain to the city / net loss to the company / employees, about $346,000 per year. And, you know, again, the same exact questions I think would be applicable in this case as well. How do you frame the benefit versus the increased cost? You know, these are real dollars and have an impact to all sides. So I think clearly framing those is you know, extremely important. And again, how that revenue would be split and applied towards the provision of services or infrastructure. You know, specifically for the case of JED, you know, scenario 3 is more of just a hypothetical new development type situation. But oftentimes JED is best used for, you know, a new development site where infrastructure is needed. That development site, of course, would be contiguous to the city for JED and or annexation. You know, identifying those costs up front, both to supply services and infrastructure, that's something we need to do up front. And then again, go through that same sort of process, you know, working with the company to determine, you know, what their capital investment, payroll, job creation are, those typical economic development metrics. And then sit down with all the parties at the table. You know, that could be the township, the company, the city, you know, other organizations like Omega or Jobs Ohio that could be helpful for grants or loans to help make the project move forward. But, you know, I've found throughout my career of doing this probably 16, 17 years now that bringing everybody in at the beginning almost always results in a better project and a higher likelihood that the project moves forward. So again, you know, a lot of this, how to move forward, is really incumbent upon what the city's goals are. You know, there's been discussion about, you know, becoming a true sort of county or regional water and sewer provider. And certainly those services are extended beyond the municipal boundaries today. You know, I think every entity wants to generate employment growth, you know, usually in their target industry sectors. And then just any other goals that might be out there, whether that's pursuing certain types of development, you know, making the city, you know, more friendly to residents, et cetera. But, you know, at the end of the day, you know, annexation and JED are both mechanisms that can assist, you know, in the promotion of achieving economic development goals. And I think the key thing is really to get ahead of it and, you know, understand that they're best used under specific circumstances. So with that, would like to say again, thank you for the opportunity to present virtually. I got all dressed up in my suit and tie. I didn't expect to be changing a flat tire on the side of the road. So I apologize I can't be there in person with you today, but nonetheless, I'll open it up to any questions or comments that you may have. Thank you.
Do we have anything?
And I guess I'll just say this as well. You know, this contract, you know, I think has about a year or so on it. So, you know, the goal of this is really to just kind of get everybody thinking and looking at some real numbers for, you know, potential JED or annexation options that exist. But, you know, as Tiffany mentioned, you know, this is really sort of an iterative process and, you know, designed to be a dynamic sort of working document that we can use going forward to help accomplish the goals that the city has.
This document will be shared too. We'll make sure that it gets out to our council members so that you have it just for future. I do think it is going to be a nice working tool for us as far as creating scenarios. You know, the first two scenarios kind of show the difficulty in doing this with an existing business, and maybe the importance of making sure that we're doing it with vacant property right now for new development, so that we can ease into that. Because it's a lot easier to work with the landowners before than it is when they're actually the ones paying that tax. You know, a couple of different cases of that, of course, would be the 2 new properties that were added to the test within the last 3 years. And so we're hopeful that this, you know, the last few conversations will help us get into a place where we can truly sit down, make kind of an overview of the properties that we really are targeting for development, especially right now. And then looking at how we can sit down at the table with our townships, with our utility partners, and make sure that we're creating some strategic plans for growth that makes sense for everybody.
I guess I'd be interested in maybe another scenario that would actually include the new Genesis property as far as, you know, what monies is the city looking at since it's part of the JED, as opposed to what money we maybe would have received had it been annexed. Is that a possibility to put that scenario together with using their?
Yeah, I mean, we
Numbers?
have kind of the potential for the JED income divided out. That was something that we did when we were first adding the property in. As far as that full annexation, that would be easy to show what your total gain would be based on their approximate employment and their annual. The challenge with that is that piece of property isn't contiguous to the rest of the city of Coshocton. So you do have to overcome quite a bit to get that piece in. Not impossible by any means, but of course, it was also put into the JED.
It'd just be a scenario,
It's a
so.
scenario.
Would,
Absolutely, no, we can certainly
Tiffany, would-
add that
Thank you.
scenario.
Would Genesis fall under type 3 expedited
It's
annexation?
not contiguous.
Right,
And it has
so,
to be contiguous, so.
okay.
Yeah, you would still have to make sure that you're adding in the rest of the acreage to get from the current boundary to that. And that you'd have the majority of the property owners that are agreeable to being able or willing to do that.
Tiffany, can I ask, I'm still just kind of confused on Tusk, on the layout of the map. And I know how it's been carved out, but I was thinking I heard him, I thought everybody, the person had to be in agreement. And did I hear, what did I hear him say about
Majority.
majority?
Yes, so, and honestly, I think that initial JED started before I was here. So we just kind of also assumed that once they said no, it was a no. After doing this research, we also learned that that's not necessarily the case. So if we were adding additional properties and to make a larger Tusk boundary, and then we had 51% agreeable, that is possible. Of course, we would defer to the law director to make sure that we're doing everything okay. But it does potentially.
It could
create
potentially
issues.
create a.
Right. So I think before they were not added in because the landowners at the time were not agreeable.
Does anybody else have anything?
Something that me and Tiffany had talked about, and we haven't went in deep in the weeds on it, but is potentially at some point, you know, creating a JED where it leads into annexation after 10 years, well, you know, a
Yeah,
certain
you kind
number
of
of
mentioned
years.
that
And,
before.
you know, this afternoon, I talked with Tiffany, and it's kind of like we put the cart before the horse. Like when this was all created, like we need a strategy for here's where we want development, and we're going to encompass all that instead of trying to go back and say, hey, do you want to join? It's, hey, this is the spot we're going to develop, and then get the plan together and say, we're either going to annex it or we're going to put it in a JED. So it's kind of, you can't go back. It's hard to go back and say, we need to fix all this when now it's something that we all learned from when we weren't here. And now we know here's where we need to make this, and here's how we need to move
It's just
forward.
like with these ordinance and things, you have to start someplace to start
Right.
correcting a little bit at a
Right.
time.
Right.
You can't change everything at once.
Right.
It's just like the building codes or whatever. You know, you gotta start someplace, a little bit at a time.
As Jason kind of indicated too, we have him with this contract for about another year. And so, you know, just, you know, the simple request of adding another scenario I think that this is something that we can certainly do, but we can also maybe even take this to the next level and really looking at the properties that we want to develop in the future, and making sure that we have the right partners at the table to talk about how to add those in to an actual strategy plan.
Yeah, I think that's a great point. And, having that value proposition well defined at those initial meetings, that just makes it a lot easier to, convey the benefits to potential property owners to be included.
Okay. Thanks, Jason. Appreciate your time.
Hey, thanks, everyone. All right,
Hey, you
I
got
gotta
the
go.
drink dust on your white shirt.
Yeah, now I gotta go figure out how, I got a fairly long drive on a donut, so we'll figure that out next. One thing at a time.
Okay. Moving on.
Can I ask Tiffany my usual questions before we let her get out of here?
Yeah.
Shea Burris, plastics plant, anywhere with that?
We had a fantastic conversation
everyone.
with another teammate, and we're really hopeful that we maybe have identified a good possibility moving forward.
In town.
Yes, within the city of Coshocton. It'll take some time, but they're willing to work with us on the plan, and we're excited for what a potential, project together could look like.
Good. And my second question, so I'll just let you answer that one too.
What is it?
Where are we on the Pastime Theater?
So unfortunately, I do have to deliver some bad news today. After months and months of waiting, we did receive a letter last week from the EDA saying that they were no longer considering it a project. So we did get denied by the EDA. Thankfully, we are in what I would call best case scenario right now with the Ohio Builds program. That's the governor's bill that he will be signing tomorrow. Jeanette and I actually will be in attendance, as well as the mayor, for the signing of that bill. So Coshocton will have a nice strong presence there. And it really is a perfect fit for the Ohio Builds. We're meeting on Thursday at 10 a.m. to talk through making sure that we've got a great collaborative grant to send in for that project that really tackles downtown development, tackles workforce, healthcare, and also recreation. So we're bringing all of the players together again on Thursday at 10.
Thank you.
Okay. Parks and Recreation, Chad, heard nothing but good things about your concert. You want to give us a little update?
Yeah, we had our first summer concert, Double Vision. I think most of the people here were there. I think Laney said he thought we had about 2,000 people. I know most of the restaurants really thrived, and that's kind of what we're after. We get people downtown. I'm excited about the next one coming up, Fleetwood Mac tribute band on the 16th. And I will announce that Ernest will be here August 5th. And I think that's going to be huge, but I hope I hope we just get bigger and bigger and bigger. And if anybody wants to donate out there, just get hold of our town Coshocton summer concert series.
I have a question. Why didn't Roger dance?
I don't know.
That was Chad's baby.
I just hope I would hope that our businesses promote the Dora.
Yeah.
Take advantage of the Dora. I think that's
Yeah.
huge.
And I think, downtown, it wasn't littered, because I drove back down Sunday morning and kind of checked it out because I figured I was going to have to clean up, but there wasn't any litter, and I really appreciate that, Coshocton.
But I drove through Sunday morning and the barricades were still up, but
I moved them at 7:30.
well, I was amazed that there was no trash
Yes,
laying around.
it really looked good, and I'm proud of everybody, and I hope to see more people out.
Yeah.
Next month.
It was great, Chad.
Thank you.
Okay, safety services. Max, I just have a question, and Jeff Mullet is just asking. He handed me a copy of the letter from 2019 about the zoning.
Yeah, he just needs to come talk to us.
He says he has, I don't know. He just needs to come back up. I need to, Max, I just need to know what to ask you, because he gave me a copy, just says that you guys have worked on it to make it an M1.
For some reason, that lot's in B3,
Right,
which pretty much encompasses what he does. He wants to change it over to manufacturing, one, light manufacturing, which is actually covered for under B3. So I've tried to tell him, I really don't know why you want to go through the process of doing that when you really don't have to. But, I mean, it's just a matter of
It's setting up,
$75.
yeah,
nothing needing to
setting the
change.
hearing up.
I'm just
I
delivering.
talk to him all the time at lunch. so,
Yeah.
Um,
And I told him I would ask.
yeah,
So now I know what to tell him. That's all I needed. The other thing that I have is Ed Dickerson sent me some pictures from the last washout we had. It's up in that same area as the two people who come into council with all the stones and stuff in his yard. He sent me pictures.
We're, actually, we spent some time with a gentleman from the governor's office of Appalachia a couple weeks ago about identifying projects for, what's the program called, Tiffany? There's some, there's
It's AMLR.
AMLR, and it basically,
Abandoned mine.
yeah, abandoned mine reclamation and drainage and issues. So, and I've also talked to our public works director about maybe pursuing some ODOT, some type of funding through ODOT for the 541, because that water just comes straight down that hill.
Right.
And it
Oh, I
just,
know.
it goes, I mean, that's where it's coming, and we need something bigger than I think what we're capable of
When-
locally.
When he stopped to see me, I just said, look, I know that they're looking into it because two other residents. And he's
Yeah,
not,
the one driveway, I think, on Cambridge Road was washed clear out on that gravel. As soon as something comes down, hits a
it's all
pipe,
down in front of my
it
house.
just, right, it
It
just
goes,
stops.
you
right,
know, it
just-
goes in the drain, which we're
Right.
trying to prevent.
Right,
So,
yeah.
okay.
I have one more thought about the concert thing. I'd like to propose maybe that we ask people in town maybe to fill out an application if we want to have something downtown, because, you know, we're kind of running into everybody wants to do something. I don't know if that's something we can do.
Would that be?
I don't really want to charge anything. I just want an application so we don't
We have a
have
schedule.
conflict. So we have a schedule of what's going on downtown, or, you know, a calendar that we could put together or something.
Would that be something we could run through our town?
Or is it just the fire department while you're out there in building inspection?
That's it, one more person.
Hey, I wish I had a video of you two hugging today. That was beautiful.
You like that?
Yes, I did. I
It
told
was a
Max, I
sweet
said, you know what, they
embrace,
come a long
wasn't
way in a short time.
Landy doesn't have anything else to do, so he could put a calendar.
So,
No, I'm just asking a question, you know, I don't know.
We need order to the chaos. It's good chaos, but
Right.
we have to have some kind of guidance and consistency. For example, we're really looking forward to Fleetwood Mac July 16th, and as Chad announced, Ernest on August 5th. That's gonna bookend First Farm Friday. Music and sound of a certain volume scares the live animals. So for example, we wouldn't want any kind of sound during that, you know, block of time between 5 and 7. So if there is an application process, we can weed that out and make sure we do have some, you know, particular control over certain situations that.
and we have right now, like a road closure form that we do approvals for, so it's something that we could
I think
probably.
it's just something we need to think about, because we almost had, you know, everything turned out great Saturday, but, you know, it was almost, almost, but, you know, it worked out fine, and I told her, thank you, and, you know, but, you know, if we had this in place, mine's going on at 6:30, yours has to go on at 4:30, or you don't have it, you know, or you switch days, or, you know, something.
Prevent conflict.
Yes, that's all I'm after. I think everything going on downtown is awesome. It's great. It's getting people out, but we don't need to butt heads.
No, it's gotta be a positive.
Right,
situation, not a
right.
negative.
Yeah, and I don't really look for it as an act of council, like, to approve that. However, you guys, I mean, we
I don't
have
know.
a DORA committee right now.
We
You
could,
want to put it under the DORA committee if it's downtown, or?
I'm the door chair, I guess we could.
I mean,
I would
it-
defer the council on how you want to do that. Obviously, as the
Yeah.
downtown director, we want to have some kind of insight on that.
Maybe I could be like the chair, I don't know, and they could go through me and then I could go through Laney or something, I don't.
Well,
know.
you have the road closures, right?
yes.
Yeah,
Yeah, so if you need the road closures, we know about it for conflict, but events,
right,
we're really not the referees for events.
right.
Yeah.
Max will be glad to take that on.
Like, maybe I'll bring a proposal back or something and we'll.
Look at it.
Well, yeah,
Yeah, well, I think we need to figure out a way. I think we should do a community.
community calendar, yes, I think
Because
so
this
too.
weekend was like, I mean,
There's a lot of
everything's
things
going
going
on.
on.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I mean, which is good, but I mean, let's,
Yeah,
I
That
mean,
building's gonna have to be all perfect for everything that
yeah,
they're gonna have to warm up for.
yeah, oh, yeah.
Lanny?
Just why I was talking, what are the next steps for the parcel that Matt and Paul would be interested then for Main Street? You have to pass an ordinance and then they.
To put it up for auction,
yeah,
correct?
it would be
How
a
does that
bid,
work?
it would be a
This will
bid
the first time that-
process. Go ahead, Bob. You're the
Basically, we
expert.
pass an ordinance that authorizes the bidding process and advertising process. We advertise it, bids come in, and the highest bidder gets to buy the property.
Right, and it'll just be sealed bids.
So we can't do auction, we can't auction. I would think that would limit what the city's receiving in funding if you do a sealed bid.
Can we-
Also offer that if it is helping a development, that if we deem it necessary, the court can be a conduit for a property transfer. Just so you know.
You put it on gov.deals, you'll put open auction.
I'll have to look at
I think it's something that
Right.
we'll get the
I mean, I
ordinance.
know what we paid for, it. We would at least want that type of funding back, I think, if we could go.
Right, can we, a minimum
Put a
bid,
minimum bid.
right, we can do a minimum bid, okay.
Okay.
That's where I would like to be at, is do whatever minimum.
And that's
bid.
just part of the bid specs.
Right.
You good? You guys have anything else on that?
No, sir.
Okay. Okay, the bus shelter, Mike sent a picture of the grills under the bus shelter. Jeff went up and took a look at it. He's taking care of it, so.
Okay.
They've
been there for a while.
Jeff got right on it. I appreciate it, Jeff. Thank you.
I did, I had.
What's on the
Max
smoker?
took care of the barrier. You said you contacted the railroad, correct? Jeremy Hammond.
We had a time frame on that, Matt, before you squeeze.
Well, I'm hoping he was supposed to call me back today, to get the time frame, but he didn't call me back, so I'll call him again tomorrow.
Well, if they don't, maybe the city could just put something
We can-
temporary there.
We got an old truck or something we can put up
Yeah.
there.
That's used other place.
Kevin
Yeah.
Shires, get him with Columbia Gas on the sidewalk and other places over there that need
Tomorrow,
light on the street.
So,
Okay. Tom,
Yeah, last week I stopped in the fire department and talked to Chief Dreyer. I had some questions for him. While I was there, he gave me a tour of the building. I had only briefly been in there before, but he gave me a tour from top to bottom. And I think it would be a good thing for council to go down sometime and have him give a tour so you can see. I mean, it is an amazing facility, what they do in there. Even if we would schedule a meeting there, it might be kind of difficult to get public in, I guess, but while I was there, the subject came up about fire hydrants, and I was asking about that. And I asked for a list and got it of fire hydrants that need repaired. There's 68 of them within the city that need repaired. 14 of them are unusable. I see that as a liability issue if someone's house, we can't control the fire because that fire hydrant doesn't work and we were aware of it. Out of that 68, a lot of them are leaking at one point or another, which really isn't too much of an issue, except maybe in the winter time when you'd have frozen stuff around I just was not aware of all that and thought that would be something that needs to be brought up.
Can I address those concerns, Tom?
Yes,
quickly,
please.
it's gotta be quick.
That'll be quick. Chief Dreher and I've been talking about this for several months. I've got actually parts of order since March. Most of them are still on back order. The few that we've got in, we've redirected our staffing. We will start trying to get at least one day a week that we do nothing but work on these out of service fire hydrants. Part of the problem is even simple things, it's gaskets, when you tear them apart, they're on back order. You can't get them right now.
And that's a problem with everybody.
Right.
Yeah.
A good example, we had to raise one quickly for clouds. 4 clouds now, excuse me, McLean. They ordered it themselves, they put themselves on back order for, what was that? Almost
They
20
put
weeks max.
themselves
Apart
on
from their
back
own
order.
plant.
Actually, got one
Yeah.
today.
Tom, anything else? No. That's all.
Okay.
Okay, Acorn Lane,
Except for, I didn't know that we was going to absolutely do that. There's been
Well,
some
that was my
discussion
understanding when
before.
we left the last meeting. The guy,
I actually spoke with the residents because they almost had a tree fall on their house and it came from the neighbor 4 houses up. He came down and wanted them to say something. I advised them, it's been a 2-way thoroughfare for 100 years. If we make that a 1-way, then why don't we make every alley 1-way? Because you can only get 1 car in the alley all around town.
I don't
So-
know that just because it's been that way, doesn't mean it has to stay that way. If that's the situation, we never make any progress. But I think being Cambridge Road, state highway, and, it's uphill going up Acorn Lane. I have a letter I'll read at council from Angela Fortune, who was one of the residents that contacted me. She couldn't be here tonight. She did email me a letter. They have small kids and it's a safety concern for them. So I'm just bringing it to everybody's attention. I was under the, when we discussed last week, I thought we were in agreement. So maybe I just misunderstood where we were on it. But I'll never buy just because it's been that way. It's going to stay that way. 'Cause I don't
Well,
know that we have to act
I'm,
that way.
I'm just saying that if we made that 1-way, let's make every alley in town 1-way because.
No one
someone
else has
calls-
requested that. This is
Right.
a great request we had. The Oaks hasn't been there probably maybe 20, 25 years.
Because
Maybe a little longer.
the next call we'll get is they're driving the wrong way. And no one's we're not setting a deputy anywhere there to watch a 1-way alley that 6 cars drive through a day. So,
Well, I'm bringing it to everybody's attention. I'll go back to what Tom said. If we're aware of it and nothing's done and there is a health or a accident, it injures a kid, then we've been made aware that it is an issue.
Yeah, I agree with Roger on this. I think if there's a safety issue involved with small children up through there, I'm not sure how many vehicles up and down there, but I think that it would be very wise to go ahead and make that a 1-way as requested by the residents. And it's not that we're gonna have to do every other street or anything like that. It's not the way that it works.
I'll read the letter during, and go from there. Thank you.
okay,
So are we agreeing that you want to sign? That's an easy thing. That's 10 minutes.
Which way you gonna make it 1-way?
I
both,
would say.
both.
I don't think they ought to be able to turn off of Cambridge Road and go up. So if we had a do not enter sign,
So you're
in a 1-way sign.
Egress off of Cambridge Road is the direction you're going. Ingress is prohibited. And I do not have a sign that says do not enter 1-way. I either have 1-way or do not enter. But Angie was going to go, because I figured this was coming up tonight. She was ordering a sign that says both.
Okay.
We need to wait on the sign, which usually takes about 2 weeks. So we can put the do not enter sign up. And since we get oops, we have to oops.
So you're gonna put do not enter Cambridge Road.
That's.
I think we should try it, see what happens. If it has an issue,
I
then
don't use that road.
Don't you think it would be safer allowing people to access Cambridge Road rather than?
if you come down the alley,
That's what I'm saying, you're going to egress Acorn Lane onto Cambridge Road, but you're not going to ingress Acorn
But
Lane.
you're
off
taking
of
people
Cambridge
from
Road.
an alley onto a state highway,
Right.
rather than from the state highway into an alley. Seems to me it'd be a lot safer allowing people to turn left or right off Cambridge into that alley. rather than-
What they're saying the problem is if there's a car coming from the Oaks out on the Cambridge Road, and there's another car turning off the Cambridge Road to go towards the Oaks.
They're going in their driveway, right?
Well, there's
They're
having to back up
backing
traffic.
to where
I've
it
never
becomes
seen that,
2
but I'm
lanes.
not, I don't live there.
Well, either way you make it solves that problem. I'm just saying it makes more sense. Not allowing people to turn onto a state highway from an alley, rather than allowing them to turn from the state
I'm just saying
highway.
where I've heard from the people, that the problem is people turning in, not going out.
And I think the problem with making it the other way, Bob, that I would see is where do you put the do not enter sign? Because you have garages there that from people who live on Vine Street, I believe. So,
You got another little short alley there, don't you?
yeah, so I think it'd
Comes
be
onto
easier
that.
to put it at Cambridge Road.
I think we need to go to council, bring this back up, follow it up at our next meeting. Rather than just do it now.
Okay.
Okay.
By that time I'll have the other sign.
You're on the clock.
Well, hopefully, let's get back ordered like the fire.
Oh, I'm good. I'm just saying. We got a hearing. You got, what do we got? A budget hearing? Okay.
Yeah.
Oh, that's not bad news. Yeah, I missed that.
I don't know.
Is it for the?
Last week?
Yeah, we did last
week. But
Sorry about that. Good. Yes, he's home. He's home. Yes, he's home. Still.
Calm your life.
Let me say it again.
No, it was, they should have heard it.
Oh, good. Yeah, a little bit. Yeah, there's no progress. Yes.
Roger, is that a competitive group?
Hi, evening.
Hi, Sherry. How are you? I'm good. How are you? I'm sure some of your officers come out of Locust,
Come out, what?
come out the shop at Locust. Do they ever come out the back way? Or is that one way now? Or do they pick up that parking lot?
They come in on
Locust,
the,
Locust on Third Street.
yeah.
You know, Park National Bank. I complained to Max, like, something needs to be done. Because when you're sitting at that intersection, how these cars are all parked here, you can't see. You get out there, you have to almost be more than a car. And it happened, I mean, it's happened to me several times. I mean, I'm like creepy because of how the cars are parked.
They should be
You
parked
can't
parallel.
see that.
I know.
And
That's the same way down at Sycamore.
yeah, Saturday, right, Greg was driving, and then seriously, like all of a sudden, I'm like, oh my gosh, it's so hard to see because there was a big truck there. And
Hey.
he slammed on his brakes because a motorcycle came flying and the motorcycle hit me.
Good, how are you?
Can you say something? Because me saying something is like
Yep.
going on back here.
I know.
And I'm like, I can't be the only person
No, I-
who's seeing the issue with
Well,
how they're parking in front of these drug houses right here. There's apartments across from Park National
that's
Bank.
been talked about on the, on how the parking is. Because I've been watching it ever since we acquired that land down there. Because if you look, especially at Sycamore intersection, when they park at 45 in that curve, there is like that much room before the center line.
Yeah,
It's,
I know.
there's no line. So all the way down to Third, so it'd be great if they park parallel curve.
Yeah.
That'd give everybody the, do that or increase the intersection. I don't know how you do that.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
But
And I'm like, look, I'm real parking sign. Back just a little bit, that thing don't want to go there. It's still, it's not even down to our, it's still not. And when they're parking just straight on, you know.
that's right.
So I thought maybe some of your officers.
Not only that,
have seen it.
but
It's-
actually, when you're approaching the intersection on Third, it's hard to tell if that vehicle even stopped at the stop sign because you can't see it until they're out in the intersection.
I know, yeah.
So it goes both ways, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
For the safety of them, plus.
Yeah, some guy pushing the cars for me.
Yeah,
there's a guy. He lifted the seats up and it goes up and down. Cause if I look in the track, you know, cut some carpet away.
I had to say, it was a.
We get a star bid.
No.
Bolton or something, you can lift that seat up, I bet you.
Yep.
Lift that seat up.
But I noticed it's different. So I thought, the king. Yeah.
Well, did you hear anything promising out of him today?
What's that?
Did you hear anything promising?
Yeah.
Our meeting was a short meeting. It's really. Whenever.
When they did. Like, here, raise the metal.
Yeah. It's gotta be what he's done. What the district's doing, how those committees he served on.
really nothing. This is what I'm gonna do for you. And I know it's early yet.
I will say, we hit him hard. And I know him 15 minutes before the visit.
He brought that up. He said there was a lot of money. He was saying a lot of grant money. That's there and this and that, but he never got it out. And said, this is what I see. I think we still get this basketball thing. Oh my gosh, yes. Yeah.
Did you call public
That's
hearing?
Glenn's. I did.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, we got Knox County. They don't have. They're growing. Yeah. Four years.
Exactly, hit that hard.
Yes, yes.
Sheriff, did we have any problems Saturday night that you're aware of?
I lost cell phone.
Oh, no, I brought the cell phone down.
From Virginia.
Oh, is that where they were from?
Yeah, gonna ship it down.
Okay, well, good, yeah, 'cause I got the name on it, but you figured they-
I know you brought it in. That's why I brought it up.
Yeah, they would have called or something, but
Yeah. Probably was worried to bring attention to it. Somebody might take it.
I picked up 4 pop cans Sunday morning on my front.
oh, good, that's why I
Threw
didn't.
them in a
remember.
recycle box.
Yeah, because I went down Sunday morning just to do that, just to pick up trash, and yeah, I didn't see anything, so.
It had a great crowd.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Especially the crowd that got out on the street, we were the best, weren't we?
Right.
I know you were, I saw you.
Yeah.
I grabbed it. Get out of here, get out of here. Because I was thinking there for a while. I'm like, this crowd, great, they're just enjoying it. I was like,
Okay.
Oh, this
stage more involved.
well, maybe if there was just get some people, right?
I'm gonna have him share.
To go ahead and get some chairs back there. You know, get some people, okay, yeah, I'll be willing to stay out here. Maybe other people will call. No lights, you didn't get to see the lights.
You know, my wife's.
Hi, Jeff.
How are you?
The lights came on.
You know what's gonna happen. It's gonna go away, and people are gonna have to write stuff down. That's gonna attack them.
Oh, yeah. I built that one. My wife and 2 principals at school built that.
I would abstain.
Councilwoman Andrews.
Yes, she's in there.
Yeah. Wow.
They're holding up pretty good. Yeah. Yeah.
Really, can you hear us?
Yeah, I can hear you.
Yeah, we thought that people were tired of it. They break them.
And
How was the portable bath?
Those speakers title.
Was it full? Was it?
I don't know how much residue, I'd have to ask your
Residue.
but
I know the.
how much black water was in it, that'd be the
I
problem.
know the porta pots, he said they were about half on all four of them, so I think.
We got a lot of compliments about it,
Good,
and
yeah,
there was no issues as far as
good,
somebody stole the toilet paper.
right, so good.
Yeah, that was one of my biggest
Trees
concerns
are-
around
trees
trees,
are
you know, for all trees. Actually, I went with me, but all over scribble on.
Yeah, just send it to me electronically.
What's that?
Excel, give it an Excel document.
Good evening. Today's Monday, June 27, 2022 at 7 p.m. It's regularly scheduled Coshocton City Council meeting. Clerk, please call the roll.
Andrews,
Here.
Barcroft. Rose.
Here.
Johnson.
Here.
Moore.
Here.
Turner. Here.
Need a motion to excuse Councilman Glenn Mishler.
So moved.
Second. Clerk, please call the roll.
Andrews,
Yes.
Barcroft.
Yes.
Rose.
Yes.
Johnson.
Yes.
Moore.
Yes.
Turner. Yes.
Please stand for the pledge, remain standing for the invocation. Pledge allegiance
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Father God, we thank you again for the opportunity to represent the city. I ask that you guide us in everything we say and do. Lord, we also lift Glenn to you tonight. Lord, we pray that you continue to be with him and continue the healing process. And we pray this in your name. Amen.
Amen. Council, your email the minutes for the June 13th, 2022 meeting. Any questions or comments, corrections?
Make a motion to accept the minutes.
Johnson, the motion, need a second? Turner, please call the roll.
Andrews,
Yes.
Barcroft.
I'll abstain, I wasn't here.
Rose.
Yes.
Johnson.
Yes.
Moore.
Yes.
Turner. Yes.
Any public input? Anybody here want to speak to council?
Mr. President, I did receive a letter regarding discussion we had in committee about Acorn Lane. So I'd like to just read that. She could not be here tonight, but she did send a letter and ask it to be read. Members of the City Council, thank you so much for hearing my concern. My name is Angela Fortune. Husband and I live on the corner of Acorn Lane and Cambridge Road. We're asking that council consider making Acorn Lane a one-way street. As it is right now, the portion of road on Acorn Lane from Cambridge Road to the Oaks can only accommodate one vehicle. What this means, if a car is coming down the road to turn onto Cambridge Road, and a car is driving down onto Acorn Lane from Cambridge Road, someone has to back up. It's not especially safe for someone to have to back up on the Cambridge Road, fairly busy street. If someone has to back up the other way, oftentimes they have to pull into ours or one of the neighbor's driveway, just put extra wear and tear on our property. We also have concerns about Acorn Lane being safe.
We have 2 young children. While we try to be vigilant, to be always with them and watch them, unfortunate accidents happen in the blink of an eye. We were hoping to avoid that. People turn on to Acorn Lane from Cambridge Road. They oftentimes have to increase speed, go up the hill onto Acorn Lane. There's a speed limit sign on Acorn Lane, but what we've seen is not monitored. People see it on a regular basis. I understand will be some pushback, but I hope these concerns will help create awareness and understanding for why we are requesting Acorn Lane to be made a one-way street going down from 16th Street to Cambridge Road. Thank you again for your time and consideration. Sincerely, Angela Fortune.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Yes, I would like to approach council.
Yes, come up to the microphone, state your name, address, please.
Yes, I spoke with, this is Fortune. I'm Tim Williams, 1245 Vine Street. I'm also concerned about that. It is a safety issue. I've seen people come up and down that on certain times of day, right? As you turn off of Cambridge Road onto Acorn, it's so narrow, you can't go both ways. Somebody has to back up. So, and I see people going in people's driveways. There's 2 little kids that live there, Fortune residents. You know, it can happen in the blink of an eye and something could happen.
Okay.
And I live further up the alley.
Right.
But you got
You
to
see
be
it?
careful. I've seen it. I've seen it several times where people going up and down that alley. And somebody's got to go into somebody's driveway or back up.
Okay. All right. Anybody have any questions?
I think Mr. Williams brought that to my attention maybe over a year ago, year and a half ago, and I know we discussed it at that time, but he contacted me, so did Fortune, so bringing it up again.
Thank you, Mr. Williams.
Thank you.
Thank you. Anybody else? Additions? Mayor's report, Mayor Mills.
Since you didn't let me talk in the last meeting,
Yes.
this is gonna be like 45 minutes.
You take whatever time you need. I'll cut you off when I need to.
Actually, just wanted to mention, Tiffany brought up, she will be at the governor's residence, with me tomorrow, representing Coshocton County in the signing of House Bill 377 and a discussion on, Appalachia and the plan. They're planning, the Department of Development Director will be there as well to explain, uses for the $500 million, from the state of Ohio for 32 Appalachian counties. It's exciting. I only want 400 million of that 500 million for Coshocton and Coshocton County. And I will let the governor know that tomorrow. So met with Representative Kick, which will be serving our area in the State House beginning in 2023. Met with him a couple weeks ago, spent an hour and a half, 2 hours with him. And today met with Senator Brenner, who will be replacing Jay Hottinger in the beginning of 2023. So connecting with our state leaders, health department, we're still hashing out the details. We're close. So I would like to have that completed and everything merged by the beginning of January 2023. So want to remind people to mow their grass, trim their weeds, and if anyone has a property code report, you can log on to cityofcoshocton.com and click the button that says report a property code violation. It goes straight to our one and only Jeff Corder. So he doesn't have anything else going on, so please do that as much as possible. I did notice today the city did cut grass weeds down around the Novelty building. The Novelty building has been sold to an out-of-town investor out of Granville, and haven't got to speak with him yet. I don't know if Tiffany has, you haven't. So I believe that's going to turn into some warehouse space is what I've heard. So hopefully they get that area cleaned up and we'll keep pushing on that. Met with the governor, a gentleman from the governor's office of Appalachia, working on through an ODNR program for drainage and different mine reclamation to make land usable and developable. There's $17 million available throughout the state of Ohio right now. So hopefully we can we showed them about $49 million worth of work that we needed done here. I laughed at Max and said, after we showed him about $30 million worth of work, he said, I'm done, get me out of here. So, wanted to mention our ARPA funding, we're roughly $850,000 to $900,000. I believe we have 350,000 right now. We'll receive another 500,000 roughly next year. My plan, since Tom brought up at the committee, I want to work probably roughly give utilities a couple $100,000, public works a couple $100,000. Utilities, I'd like to get number one priority is fire hydrants, public works, alleys. I know every alley in this town needs work, so we're going to try to identify the ones with the most traffic and get some work done there. And then the other 500,000 roughly for general government services, and go from there. So just wanted to bring that up, and we'll probably have something for the next council meeting. I will talk more in depth with MuniReg on a report for their application process for vacant buildings and the form that needs to be filled out, and see if we're getting that done, and if we're not, why we're not getting that done. Exciting weekend around town, Any Mud Run, the concert, the Art Guild had an event, Pomerine had an event downtown, Indian Mud Run, what else? I don't know, it was a wild weekend. So want to thank people who came to the downtown event for being orderly, picking their trash up. Once again, we did get the portable restroom out. Everything went well all over town, as far as I'm concerned, for as many people, you know, residents and outsiders that were in town over the weekend. Everything went pretty well. So just want to thank everyone for being involved and getting something done. And it was great to see people out. Even though Roger didn't dance, I still had a good time. And if you have any questions, I will answer them.
Any questions? Good. Safety Director's report, Max?
I have nothing further to report to what we had in committee. I would like to give a shout out to our Public Works Department on the night of the storm. I think it was 2 weeks ago tonight, was it not? We have 65 miles of streets, and I think every street had something across it. And by 5:30 or 6 o'clock, we had all streets passable. We weren't cleaned up completely, but guys done a good job in some trying conditions, especially when the second storm decided to come through. And then shout out to Chad, Tom Barcroft, County Commissioners, Coshocton Foundation for the collaboration that it took to get power to have that concert. We now have a permanent 200 amp power supply for Main Street to have those concerts and anything else that we're having downtown. So that was done in a relatively short period of time. So that's all I have, unless you guys have questions.
Questions? Bob, you have any Law Director's report?
I have nothing.
Auditor's report, Sherry, you have anything?
I don't have a report, but I just wanted to touch on a little bit what Mark had said about the ARPA. And I believe it's this year yet that we'll get the additional, yeah, it's, they said it was going to be released here. I'm expecting it probably August, September is what I'm thinking. Right now, like Mark said, there's a unencumbered cash of $339,000. So I want you to understand that, you know, that the money in that fund must remain in that ARPA fund. We can't take money out of it and put into the water fund or into the street fund. All the expenses will have to run out of that fund. So I'll come up with line items for that particular fund. So we can't transfer it or anything like that. It will all have to run through there. So, I mean, I think it would be good to go ahead and start with the 339 and then make sure once we get the other in and we can, you know, go from there too.
Can I get 100 of that for a concert?
Nice try.
Yeah. Sheriff's report, council email, the sheriff's report, the shifts, detectives, dispatchers, administration, code enforcement. Do you have any questions? Sheriff, I have a question for you. How's the education of the city ordinances going for the deputies?
I think very well. Guys still need to take initiative and talk with Jeff but it's coming.
Okay. Go process.
It's a process.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah. And being that he's so busy, they gotta track him down.
Yeah.
He's hardly ever in the office, so.
Right. Gotcha. Anybody have any other questions for the sheriff? Thank you.
Yes, sir.
Okay. Jeff, do you have anything to add? Everything's right there.
Just please pass the new amended ordinance tonight for the grass height, because 15 days is way too much. And I think we're making a lot of inroads and county's looking good. Talking with the sheriff so far, we've written about 60 grass and combination grass and junk ordinances.
Okay.
And 90% of those have complied within the time frame.
Perfect. Utilities Director, Dave?
You have
We were emailed the report. Anybody have any questions
Any
for him?
questions?
I guess I'll request that after we pass the grass ordinance, if maybe Dave could send a notice out with the water bills telling our residents it's no longer 15 days, it is now 7.
Can you put that in a water bill,
We
please?
get you a synopsis.
Yeah, well, as we mentioned before, we have the small box that gets a half dozen lines. We can put it in there. If you want a full page
No, we just want something that it's amended.
in that little box,
In that little
way we
box.
do it. That's gonna charge for us.
Just a
Okay.
snippet.
Yep.
And if they have any questions, we can call Mary Mills. Okay. Chief Dreher, you have anything from the fire department?
Just that we've closed on one of those properties on Poplar Street. We own one of them. We're still waiting on the other property. And there's some demo money coming through the port that we're waiting on as well to demo those houses. So,
Okay, awesome.
thank you.
I have a question for you.
Yes, sir.
We were talking about the street closure on it, and are we getting closer to?
I apologize. I had told you guys they were planning on opening that. That was the meeting before the storm. And if you guys don't know that they did lose 2 peaks of the church during the storm.
Okay.
So they're waiting to get this, it sounds like they're gonna actually bring the walls down now. And I talked to them today, they're waiting on to do that. So they were planning on opening the street after the storm that Wednesday, I believe, and it didn't happen.
A little while longer.
It's gonna be a little while longer. Yes, sir. Thank you.
Thanks. Anybody else? Tiffany, you're in attendance. You have anything?
Just thank you for your continued commitment to the Coshocton CRA. Tonight you've got your ordinance for the Honey House on Main. Our next board meeting is July 12th. We'll provide some additional minutes after that meeting.
Okay. Thank you. Do I have anything else? Go into legislation. Ask the clerk to give the first reading of ordinance 24-22.
An ordinance establishing the wage for the position of fire chief and superseding any wage ordinance for the said position.
For the first reading of ordinance 24-22, any questions or comments?
Make a motion to suspend the rules and give it a second and third reading.
Second. Or second. Call the roll.
Andrews,
Yes.
Barcroft.
Yes.
Gross.
Yes.
Johnson.
Yes.
Moore.
Yes.
Turner. Yes.
Clerk, please give the second reading of ordinance 24-22.
An ordinance establishing a wage for the position of fire chief and superseding any wage ordinance for said position.
Questions or comments? Clerk, please give a third reading of ordinance 24-22.
An ordinance establishing the wage for the position of fire chief and superseding any wage ordinance for said position.
Question is, should ordinance 24-22 pass? Clerk, please call the roll.
Andrews,
Yes.
Barcroft.
Yes.
Gross.
Yes.
Johnson.
Yes.
Moore.
Yes.
Turner. Yes.
Ordinance 24-22 is passed. Next, I'll ask the clerk to give the first reading of ordinance 25-22.
An ordinance authorizing the city of Coshocton to enter into a community reinvestment area agreement with Honey House Coshocton LLC pursuant to section 3735.67A and 3735.671 of the Ohio Revised Code, authorizing the city of Coshocton to enter into a related school compensation agreement with the Coshocton City School District and Honey House Coshocton LLC.
For the first reading of ordinance 25-22, any questions or comments?
I'll make a motion to suspend the rules and give the second and third reading.
Barker, second. Clerk call the roll.
Andrews,
Yes.
Norcross,
Yes.
Gross,
Yes.
Mishler, or Johnson,
Yes.
Moore,
Yes.
Turner. Yes.
Clerk, please give the second reading of ordinance 25-22.
An ordinance authorizing the city of Coshocton to enter into a community reinvestment area agreement with Honey House Coshocton LLC pursuant to sections 3735.67A and 3735.671 of the Ohio Revised Code, authorizing the city of Coshocton to enter into a related school compensation agreement with the Coshocton City School District and Honey House Coshocton LLC.
Questions or comments? Clerk, give the third reading of ordinance 25-22.
An ordinance authorizing the city of Coshocton to enter into a community reinvestment area agreement with Honey House Coshocton LLC pursuant to section 3735.67A and 3735.671 of the Ohio Revised Code, authorizing the city of Coshocton to enter into a related school compensation agreement with the Coshocton City School District and Honey House Coshocton LLC.
Question is, should ordinance 25-22 pass? Clerk, please call the roll.
Andrews,
Yes.
Barcroft,
Yes.
Rose,
Yes.
Johnson.
Yes.
Moore.
Yes.
Turner. Yes.
Ordinance 25-22 is passed. Where's your money on that one? I'll ask the clerk to give the first reading of 26-22.
Appropriations.
There you go. You've heard the first reading of ordinance 26-22. Any comments?
I'll make a motion, we suspend the rules and give 26-22 appropriations a second and third reading.
I'll second
Johnson, second. Clerk, please call the roll.
Andrews,
Yes.
Barcroft,
Yes.
Rose,
Yes.
Johnson.
it. Yes.
Moore.
Yes.
Turner. Yes.
Clerk, please give the second reading of ordinance 26-22.
Appropriations.
Questions or comments? Clerk, please give the third reading of ordinance 26-22.
Appropriations.
Question is, should ordinance 26-22 pass? Clerk, please call the roll.
Andrews,
Yes.
Barcroft.
Yes.
Rose,
Yes.
Johnson.
Yes.
Moore.
Yes.
Turner. Yes.
Ordinance 26-22 is passed. I'll ask the clerk to give the first reading of ordinance 27-22.
Transfer.
You heard the first reading of ordinance 27-22. Any questions or comments?
Make a motion to suspend the rules and give the second and third reading.
Johnson,
I'll second.
Turner. Clerk, please call the roll.
Andrews,
Yes.
Barcroft,
Yes.
Rose,
Yes.
Johnson.
Yes.
Moore.
Yes.
Turner. Yes.
Clerk, please give the second reading of ordinance 27-22.
Transfer.
Questions or comments? Please give the third reading, ordinance 27-22.
Transfer.
Question is, should 27-22 pass? Clerk, please call the roll.
Andrews,
Yes.
Barcroft.
Yes.
Rose,
Yes.
Johnson.
Yes.
Moore.
Yes.
Turner. Yes.
Last one, the first reading. I'll ask the clerk to give the first reading of ordinance 28-22.
An ordinance establishing the compensation for EPA certified professional operators.
For the first reading of ordinance 28-22, any questions or comments? Ordinance will run its course. Second reading. I'll ask the clerk to give the second reading of ordinance 19-22.
An ordinance approving the addition and inclusion of certain ordinances as parts of the various component codes of the codified ordinances of Coshocton, Ohio, and declaring an emergency.
For the second reading of ordinance 19-22, any questions or comments?
Make a motion to give it a third reading.
Johnson,
Second.
Moore, second. Clerk, please give the third reading of ordinance. Oh, please call the roll.
Andrews,
Yes.
Crop,
Yes.
Gross,
Yes.
Johnson.
Yes.
Moore,
Yes.
Turner. Yes.
Clerk, please give the third reading of ordinance 19-22.
An ordinance approving the addition and inclusion of certain ordinances as parts of the various component codes of the codified ordinances of Coshocton, Ohio, and declaring an emergency.
Question is, should ordinance 19-22 pass? Clerk, please call the roll.
Andrews,
Yes.
Barcroft,
Yes.
Gross,
Yes.
Johnson.
Yes.
Moore,
Yes.
Turner. Yes.
Ordinance 19-22 is passed. Second reading, I'll ask clerk to give the second reading of ordinance 20-22.
An ordinance adopting the budget of the city of Coshocton, Ohio for the fiscal year beginning January 2023 and submitting same to the county auditor.
You've heard the second reading of ordinance 20-22. Questions or comments?
It can go on more reading if you want. It's fine.
Ordinance will run its course.
Should we, maybe go ahead and take care of it since we never know how many we're gonna have?
That's what I'm thinking.
Yes, I won't be. I'll make a motion to suspend the rules and give it a third reading.
Second.
More second. Clerk, please call the roll.
Andrews,
Yes.
Barcroft,
Yes.
Gross,
Yes.
Johnson.
Yes.
Moore.
Yes.
Turner. Yes.
Clerk, please give the third reading of ordinance 20-22.
An ordinance adopting the budget of the city of Coshocton, Ohio for the fiscal year beginning January 2023 and submitting same to the county auditor.
Question is, should ordinance 20-22 pass? Clerk, please call the roll.
Andrews,
Yes.
Barcroft.
Yes.
Gross,
Yes.
Johnson.
Yes.
Moore.
Yes.
Turner. Yes.
Ordinance 20-22 is passed. I'll ask the clerk to give the second reading of ordinance 21-22.
Appropriation.
Heard the second reading of ordinance 21-22. Any questions or comments?
I'll make a motion, we suspend the rules and give 21-22 a third reading.
I'll second.
Clerk, please call the roll.
Andrews,
Yes.
Barcroft,
Yes.
Gross,
Yes.
Johnson.
Yes.
Moore.
Yes.
Turner. Yes.
Questions or comments? Clerk, please give the third reading of ordinance 21-22.
Transfer.
Question is, should 21-22 pass? Clerk, please call the roll.
Andrews,
Yes.
Barcroft,
Yes.
Gross,
Yes.
Johnson.
Yes.
Moore.
Yes.
Turner. Yes.
Ordinance 21-22 is passed. I'll ask the clerk to give the second reading of ordinance 22-22.
Transfer.
For the second reading of ordinance 22-22, any questions or comments?
Make a motion to suspend the rules and give it a third reading.
Johnson, second. Barcroft, seconded. Call the roll, please.
Andrews,
Yes.
Barcroft,
Yes.
Gross,
Yes.
Johnson.
Yes.
Moore.
Yes.
Turner. Yes.
Questions or comments? Clerk, give the third reading of ordinance 22-22.
Transfer.
Question is, should ordinance 22-22 pass? Clerk, please call the roll.
Andrews,
Yes.
Barcroft.
Yes.
Gross,
Yes.
Johnson.
Yes.
Moore.
Yes.
Turner. Yes.
Ordinance 22-22 is passed. I'll ask the clerk to give the second reading of ordinance 23-22.
An ordinance to amend the city of Coshocton codified ordinances, chapter 1333.
For the second reading of ordinance 23-22, any questions or comments?
I'll make a motion, we suspend the rules and give 23-22 a third reading.
Second.
Call the roll, please.
Andrews,
Yes.
Barcroft.
Yes.
Gross,
Yes.
Johnson.
Yes.
Moore.
Yes.
Turner. Yes.
Questions or comments? Clerk, please give the third reading of ordinance 23-22.
An ordinance to amend the city of Coshocton codified ordinances, chapter 1333.
Question is, should ordinance 23-22 pass? Clerk, please call the roll.
Andrews,
Yes.
Barcroft.
Yes.
Gross,
Yes.
Johnson.
Yes.
Moore.
Yes.
Turner. Yes.
Ordinance 23-22 is passed. Nothing at the third reading. Resolutions. Clerk, please give the reading for resolution 6-22.
A resolution of authority.
Question is, should ordinance 6-22 be adopted? Clerk, please call the roll.
Andrews,
Yes.
Moore, Barcroft,
Yes.
Gross,
Yes.
Johnson,
Yes.
Moore,
My vote would be a no, but since I'm on the park board, I will abstain from voting.
Turner.
Yes.
Resolution 6-22 is adopted. Clerk, please give the reading for resolution 7-22.
A resolution authorizing the mayor, service director, or auditor to sell certain city property as described herein by internet auction.
Question is, should resolution 7-22 be adopted? Clerk, please call the roll.
Andrews,
Yes.
Barcroft.
Yes.
Gross,
Yes.
Johnson.
Yes.
Moore,
Yes.
Turner. Yes.
Resolution 7-22 is adopted. Old business, any new business?
I would like to, the next concert coming up on July 16th will be a Mac Mania. I have my own Facebook page, Chad Johnson, City Councilman. You can go on there and there's a drop down and you can listen to them. And then Ernest will be here August 5th, rising country singer. And I want to thank the county commissioners, like Max said, for running the electricity. I want to thank them for cleaning the park. I want to thank the city workers for getting out the portable toilet that we had down there. First time we've used it, and I think everything went great, and I appreciate the community's support. Thanks.
Anybody else?
I probably mentioned, it's all right, Rusty, we had 2 of our firefighters take the captain's exam for the opening that we have there, but it's done
Very, very well.
very well.
Yep.
That's proves the quality of people that we have there. And we'll be conducting interviews Thursday morning of the 2 candidates and then hiring a new, or promoting the fireman to the position of fire captain.
Anybody else? I'd like to thank Councilwoman Andrews for taking time away from her vacation to join us so we could get some of this stuff done. We appreciate your efforts there. Also, Chad, I want to thank you for your effort on this concert series. You know, I don't care if there was only, I don't care how many people was there. If half of them go tell their friends and get them excited about coming again, it's only going to get better. So great job with that, and everybody's pitched in and helped. So keep up the good work with that. Coshocton is making progress.
I want to say one more thing. I want to thank Mike Gross for making all the signs for us, for you know, everything I put out there. Mike made it and they all looked awesome. So appreciate it.
Thanks, Mike.
Hey, I want to thank you for the signed sign in my office. That's pretty neat.
Like that?
Yeah, so keep the autographs coming.
Yep.
And I want to hear both of you sing Stevie Nicks with Fleetwood Mac.
Hey, I don't know the words to.
When's the date of our next meeting?
July 11th.
Okay, council start July 11th, 7 o'clock. Committee will start at 5:30. Need a motion for a meeting to be adjourned.
Move.
More.
I'll second.
Johnson. Clerk, please call the roll.
Andrews,
Yes.
Yes.
Gross,
Yes.
Johnson.
Yes.
Moore,
Yes.
Turner. Yes.
Adjourn.
Jeff.